wherever you are. Welcome to another of my takes on China. And this one, I've presented enough information, evidence for myself from inside places like Xinjiang and Xinjiang to prove consistently, at least to myself, that the narrative on Uyghurs and the Tibetan people is wrong, the Western narrative. Many people approach me and they ask me questions such as this. What can I tell my friend who constantly assures me that China is bad and these things are right? Unfortunately, I have one piece of advice for these people that they won't like, and one that they'll probably like even less. And first of all, let's talk about the one they won't like. One of the things that we can do is we can agree to differ, and perhaps there ought to be an agreement not to discuss this matter in future, especially if alcohol is involved. I find that's always a good way to deal with friends who have disagreements on the fundamentals that I believe in. The same applies for people who believe Israel has the right to do what it's doing, and those who believe that Israel is committing genocide, or those that think the Russian invasion of Ukraine was unprovoked. You can agree to disagree, and you can discuss it, or you can agree not to discuss it in future. And you can do what you really should be doing, and that is get new friends. Leaving the Israel and Ukraine situations aside, because I haven't been there, I can only go on what's reported, and I have very strong opinions that others vehemently disagree with. But let's stick with what I do know about, and that is China, and particularly Xinjiang, where I've traveled several times, including twice so far this year. Now, if you believe me, if you've been there and you've seen for yourself, or if you accept that the entire Islamic world is in agreement and that the leading experts of the world, inside and outside of the United Nations, are also in agreement, there is not and has never been a genocide in Xinjiang, then you can start looking for evidence that there isn't, and there never has been oppression, persecution, forced labor, or even what people started to call a cultural genocide because they didn't have a word for something that isn't even happening. And they needed to invent one. That's what cultural genocide is. It's an invention. What there is, or was poverty. Poverty alleviation, retraining programs, massive investment in education, and yes, a much higher degree of security than other Chinese regions. These are all necessary to remove a stain created for the most part by outside forces, capitalizing on internal problems mostly caused by that poverty and enforced by regional isolation. It takes over 5 hours to fly to the center of Xinjiang from the East Coast. It used to take 25 or more on a train. It's very hard to get to, but it's not difficult or in any way restricted to visit. So when a friend tells you that they believe Western media, tell them go and see. Either they can't afford it, which is fair enough, not everyone can afford the time or the money to visit a place so remote, or they won't go there because it's too dangerous. I get that. But they can go on Xiaohongshu, Douyin, or for goodness sake, they can even go on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and X for the truth. If they choose to disregard that truth, then I have only one thing left to say. Your friend is wrong. If he or she prefers not to believe, there's nothing at all to be done for those people. They fit, in my opinion anyway, into one of only 3 categories. Number 1, they're ignorant or unintelligent in that they don't have the smarts to understand the truth when it's proven to them. These people either have never possessed or have lost all critical thinking skills. They believe what they read in the media and will argue black is white if their favorite TV show host told them that it was. If that's your friend, get a new friend. Otherwise, they're going to drag you down to their level of stupidity and they're going to win every argument based on their experience. And believe me, they are experienced at being foolish and ignorant. Number 2, assuming they're not ignorant or stupid, then they're racist. And they prefer not to believe that China is capable of anything they think only white people or sometimes Christian people can do. Now, some of these people, such as Gordon Chang or Adrian Zenz, are 100% convinced of their beliefs because their God told them so. Now, I honestly believe that Gordon and Adrian share the same God. But I'm sure if they got into a debate about anything other than China, They would vehemently disagree with each other on everything, but on China, they would have much in common. They ignore or reject everything coming from China, including from people such as me, living, working, traveling, asking about China on a daily basis. They reject me as a liar. Their God has told them China is evil and therefore China is evil. Many of them will tell you they love the Chinese people, but the government. Then in the next sentence, they'll call upon the gods to smite their enemies. Chang does this all the time, and almost daily asking us to deport Chinese people, strike before it's too late, act now before the evil communists take over the world. They don't love Chinese people at all. They only claim to do so to justify their hatred. They will debate, but they will never accept evidence that contradicts their opinion. By the way, I'd be happy to debate Gordon or Adrian. If anyone's connected to them, let them know. More than 1 in every 12 people is a member of the Communist Party. It's impossible to differentiate between the party and the people. And there are thousands of applications submitted regularly for acceptance. This is not only the world's largest political party, it's actually the world's most popular. So please don't be drawn in by people who tell you they love China, but they hate the party. It is not possible to do so. Number 3, they are part of the misinformation. They're deliberately lying to you, either for payment, for recognition of their own status, or simply because of one or two. They're too stupid or ignorant. There's too many examples of this kind of person online for me to mention them all, and every time I make a video that mentions 1 or 2 of them, I get dozens of messages correcting me because I've left someone out. So I'm not going to list any of them because I can't list them all. We all know who they are. We all have our pet favorite, and we know that they are part of the misinformation, presenting stories that can't be proven by using modals such as they might, they may, they could be. And again, I'd be happy to debate these people. Many of them left China a long time ago. Some of them have never even been to China. I see no problem with getting online and putting my experience, my knowledge, against theirs. If you have a favorite anti-China commentator, ask them if they'd be willing to debate me. Ask them to prove me wrong. I'd be very happy to chat on a live show with any of them. If they won't debate me on a live show, what does that tell us? So it's absolutely true. China might be imprisoning millions of people, but they aren't. And the Americans do. It's highly possible that China could militarize the South China Seas, but they don't. And the Spanish, Dutch, French, British, Portuguese all did that before the legacy was handed over to the Americans, who do it now. Potentially, China may take away the democratic rights of the people of Hong Kong, but they haven't, while the British did. China may be enslaving millions of Tibetans in Xinjiang, but they aren't. The Dalai Lama and his people, currently supported by the CIA, did, and they would like to do so once more. Now, this is how it's done to us, and unfortunately, it's done to some of our friends. What we decide to do when our friends and even our family confront us with tales of China's evil intent is to ask for evidence. Ask for proof, not allegations. China could indeed incarcerate 1 million people in Xinjiang, as former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo kept alleging, but then he never pointed out where they were, how they got there, who are the custodians, the transportation officials, the logistics, the food, the supplies, the organizations that's needed. The only things that they did allege was that it was happening in China, while it was, and still is, happening in the USA. Over 120,000 Japanese citizens during World War II there, and the current population of prisons is the highest in the world on per capita and real number basis. Concentration camps did happen to the Boers in South Africa, where over 10% of the entire population were placed in those camps by the British, and about 25% of them died. It did happen in Europe, where the Germans took the rap for the entire Holocaust, while several other countries willingly participated. It did happen in Asia, where Japanese did it to so many different populations, and it's happening now in Gaza. There is more strong evidence, there is proof of all of these happened, while we're bombarded with allegations that China could do any of all of these. Yes, they could, but they never have, nor have they threatened to. Whatever you decide to do about your friends is entirely a matter for you. But I have to be honest here. China is now such an important part of my life that if they were my friends before, they aren't anymore. I understand it's not such a big deal for some people, and from time to time we need to swallow a comment, bite that tongue so as not to say anything that offends. I was once the same, but on China, I'm not now. Think about this. We know the US uses media to misinform us. We know they get caught from time to time in clandestine operations that go wrong. Watergate, Iran-Contra, weapons of mass destruction, the Gulf of Tonkin. We even know they create invasions and coups. They openly admit color revolutions to create regime changes. They boast that their intelligence organizations have infiltrated every single network on the ground to disinform and to enhance genuine grievances. It's so open now, it's not a secret. I don't need to provide links to this. Every single person in the world knows it already, and the US even admit it often enough. Consequently, many people choose to distrust their governments. But they also distrust their media and their politicians and their intelligence communities. And then, for some strange reason, they choose to believe those same sources when they talk about China, Iran, Venezuela, the DPRK, but particularly China. Why would they do that? They have to ask themselves. We can't convince our friends. There is so much proof and real information coming out of China now that anyone who believes the misinformation and the disinformation of organizations employed by government to disinform must either be very stupid, very racist, or perhaps they're paid to be part of the misinformation. There simply can't be another explanation. There's much misinformation about China, but that doesn't make everyone a liar. Once faced with facts, intelligent and open-minded people will accept they've been misled and they'll seek more information. And that's where people like me, with experience, knowledge and plenty of time on their hands, can step in to help. Many people tell me I shouldn't answer so many questions which appear to come from trolls. But it's not the trolls I'm answering, it's you. The people still watching. It's the people you talk to who have problems understanding China in the midst of all the confusion about this country. And that's why I always ask you to share widely. Anyone with questions can ask. Anyone calling me a liar simply fits into one of those three categories. There are no other explanations that I can think of. So I'll always enter discussions with people who ask reasonable questions, who seek clarification, and who have an open mind. But I'm now at the point where I've given up attempting to debate, discuss, or even argue with anyone who unequivocally tells me China is going to invade Taiwan, China is removing the rights of people in Hong Kong, China has occupied Xinjiang or Tibet as a military force, or who still thinks Uyghurs are being punished by China. Ask me questions about this, but do not assert any of it to be true. If you do, then you're either stupid or you're a racist. From my perspective, if you believe that while all the evidence that points to a genocide happening in Gaza is as overwhelming as all the evidence that there's not one happening in Xinjiang, it's as simple as this. You either agree with me on this, or we aren't friends anymore. And if that seems harsh, then I'm sorry. You're allowed to be ignorant. This is a lack of information on a topic. I will help you become informed. If you can't accept what I tell you is true, then you aren't ignorant, you're willfully ignorant. And that's not a nice look for you at all. If you refuse to accept that you're not ignorant, then you're something else. And I don't want you in my life. And that's really what I tell my friends who hate China. You're no longer my friend. That's all from me for now. Please share this one, because if any of your friends are asking you questions, you can point them in my direction. If they start making accusations, they'll just get blocked. If they want open-minded questions with fact-based results, I'll give it to them. Thanks for that, and I'll see you next time.